Hello everyone and welcome to Nervous Nessie. Now that I have accomplished my goal of going to all 50 states, I encounter people who, whenever they find that out, they ask me, what's your favorite this? What about this? They start asking questions to try and, I guess, go for the best thing. And a lot of times it's hard to answer their questions because it's all subjective. It's all a matter of what's important to you and the things that you like to see and do. Some people love nature, love getting out, and they may be like, where's the best place to hike? Well, I don't do a lot of hiking, so I can't necessarily speak to that. Some people are foodies, and I can give you some great recommendations for foods in specific areas, but not every trip did I eat all kinds of great food. So there's a lot that goes into thinking about that, and whenever I do answer those questions, I try to find out a little bit more about what that person wants to experience. But I will say this, there are some universal blanket truths that, from my opinion, I guess are consistently the best. And so I wanted to share with you some of my thoughts on that. And I'm going to do 3 separate videos. This is the first one. So this video is going to be the most memorable places, the top 5 most memorable places I have experienced in all 50 states. The second video will be the top 5 states, and the third video will be the top 5 cities in the United States to visit. So with this video, we're going to talk about the top 5 most memorable places in the United States that I experienced and why. So let's get into it. Whether it is architecture or nature or just some kind of an experience, I feel like there is a lot that you can really pull from going on a trip. And these top 5 things are kind of a mixture of all of that. So these are going to be numbers 5 to number 1, with number 1 being the most mind-blowing. And number 5 is going to be walking out of Union Station in Washington, D.C. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, what? Really? You're walking out of a train station in Washington, D.C.? I have walked out of many, many train stations in this country. As you have seen in all of my videos, I take the train a lot. And I feel like in every major city, there is Union Station. There's a Union Station in Los Angeles, there's a Union Station in Chicago, and there's a Union Station in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of Union Stations. It's just like this universal, like, known thing that Union Station is the big hub, the big train station. Now, when you first get into the main corridor of the train station, you have the little, like, passageways and hallways that you go down to get to the trains, but when you come out into the big open area, there's this giant American flag there that you cannot miss. And it's when you know you're going to this, the United States Capitol, that hits you. And it really is like, oh, okay, And for someone who is born and raised in the United States, you have that kind of sense of, patriotism. For someone who is new to the United States, maybe they're from another country, it signifies you are here. This is the United States. But when you open up the front doors to go out onto the street, directly in front of those front doors is the Capitol building. And it is just this stunning, beautiful, clear shot of the Capitol building directly in front of you. And there is just something about that. It just hits you. It hits hard. It's one thing to see a building that you've only ever seen on TV shows and movies and, in books and pictures and stuff, and you think, maybe one day I'll get to see that. But then you see it, and it's something about the reveal of it, where you're just opening the door. Kind of like in the movie The Wizard of Oz, where she opens the door and the movie flips from black and white to color. It has that feeling to it, where you just open the door and you realize you're not in a normal city. This is the Capitol. And directly in front of you is the Capitol building. The Capitol building is only 3 blocks down from Union Station. And I actually stayed right there on that corner. There's a hotel there on the corner that I stayed at, and that's why I went out that way. And I'm sure there's other entrances that you can exit, but if you go out that main entrance, there is just something about opening the door and seeing this lit up, beautiful Capitol building directly in front of you. Number 4 is going to be the mountains in Breckenridge, Colorado. Years and years ago, I went with a family to go skiing. I can't ski, found that out on that trip. And we went up onto this mountain, it was one of the highest mountains, and they had sleds. So it was like these big inner tubes and sleds, and you could pay and you could go down, and it was a lot of fun. But when you first get off the lift there, it kind of is a little landing area, and then you kind of have to walk up to the actual sledding area. But at that landing area, I remembered looking out, and as far as the eye could see were all of these mountains. Just this beautiful, it's the Rocky Mountain Range. You're in the thick of it. It's in the middle of winter where it's all snow-capped. And you have all these different, high, different elevations of mountains across there. And it was the most stunning, like you just stop and you just look. And I guess you could say it's a very spiritual experience, because you realize, like, how is this made? I'm not a very religious person, but I am pretty spiritual, and I will say it was one of those moments that I was just in awe, because you just can't fathom the height of these mountains and the snow and the trees and everything. I live in California where we have mountains, we have snow, I see it, but this is an elevated level. And by elevated, I mean it's 1,000 feet elevation. It is up there. And so you're seeing the tallest mountains in the United States, like all right there together. And so I would say number 4 is definitely the mountains in Breckenridge, Colorado. Number 3 has to be the Aurora Borealis above the lake in Alaska. Now, I was able to only capture the aurora on my camera, and even then, the picture didn't turn out near as well as I had hoped, but something about being on a completely flat lake that is frozen and seeing the Aurora Borealis above it while you're ice fishing is just magical. That's the only thing I can think of as magical. And I will kind of add in a little side note to this as well. Drinking the water on the Arctic Circle tour. When I did the tour going up to the Arctic Circle, they pull the bus off on the side of the road and they let you drink the water from the glacier. You can fill up your water bottle and everything, which I did, and I had low expectations. I will admit, I had low expectations going into it. But drinking that water, I would almost say I'd move to Alaska just for that water. It was the purest water of my life. Now, ever since I drank that, I can taste things in water that I did not realize was there before. It is so pure. So if you ever go to Alaska, try to find yourself a big open area. Go during the winter. I know it's cold, but go during the winter so you can see the aurora borealis. And if there's a place where you can drink glacier water, take advantage of it. You will not regret it. The number 2 most memorable place was kind of found on accident, I guess. Years and years ago, when I moved from the East Coast to California, I had to drive across the country, which took me through many, many states. And one of those states was New Mexico. Now, I was in a hurry to get to California so that I could get the keys to my apartment. It was the weekend, there was this whole thing. I basically had 2 days to get across country. I was pulling everything in a moving truck. So I was hauling. And it was basically driving 24/7. Hit New Mexico in the middle of the night. Now, if you've never been to New Mexico, then you may not understand this, but it was to the point there was not another human being on the road at all. No one on the road for as far as the eye could see, front and back. And New Mexico is extremely flat, very, very flat. So as far as the eye can see, there's not another vehicle on the road. And there's no towns. Like if you go through you're on a major interstate and there's no cities, no towns, nothing. So there's no light pollution. And just happen to be driving along and you look up and you're like, whoa. You pull over to the side of the road and you just get out and look. Because there is no light pollution and because there's nothing like trees or buildings to block your view, you get to see every single star in the galaxy. Think of those NASA pictures that you see the Milky Way going across. You can see that in New Mexico at night. And so basically it was a lot of turn off the headlights on the car, because what's the point? There's nobody else on the road. And just driving really slow with, head hanging out the window. I promise you, it sounds extremely unsafe, but there's nobody on the road. As long as you keep it on the road, you're good. But you're able to see that. I would honestly say, I would love to go back to New Mexico and do a camping trip and go camping at night in one of those areas where there is nothing out there so that I can get some really good pictures and videos. But if you ever get a chance to go through New Mexico, do it at night. You will not regret it. It is unbelievably stunning. And last but not least, the number 1 most memorable place that I went to would have to be the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone. Not just Yellowstone, obviously Yellowstone is beautiful. There's a lot to see there, a lot of mind-blowing things. You see Old Faithful, you see all of the prismatic springs, and it's stunning. All of it is stunning, but nothing compares to what is called Grand Canyon of Yellowstone. It actually moved me to tears. And even when I think about it to this day, I start to kind of get teared up. It's just that breathtaking. Just like in the mountains in Breckenridge, Colorado, where you see all of it and you're like, how is this made? Now you've got this huge canyon. And it's like, how is this made? And I've been to Canyonlands National Park. I've been to Grand Canyon National Park. I've been to those parks, but there is just something about the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone. I think it has to do with the fact that you do have the river going down through there and you have the trees add a lot more depth to it. And you see how it has just eroded. This water has just continuously eroded down, and just the depth of it, the seeing down into the bottom, and it's like, insanely huge. It's just gorgeous. And it's so quiet. That's the thing, is like, granted, I went when it was not peak season and it was fairly quiet there, but it was extremely quiet. You could hear the birds and you could hear, wildlife and stuff around, and there was nobody really there. And so you really get immersed into it. It almost makes you feel as if you're one of the settlers going out west and you just came across this. That it gives you that feeling. So if you want to see something absolutely beautiful and stunning, go to Yellowstone. Go see the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone and try to do it when it's not peak season. So don't go in the summer, but at the same time, you probably don't want to go in the winter because it's going to be harder to get around in the park. So maybe in the fall or early spring, right as everything's starting to thaw out, but I would highly recommend going there because it is absolutely breathtaking. So if you ask me, what is your top 5 most memorable places that you have seen? This would be it. And I know you're thinking, really? On some of these? That's not really for me. And it may not be. But it's the moments that years later, these things have stuck with me. I still remember every detail of all of this because it is just, it's something about it just gets ingrained into you. If you have any questions about these places, or if you have any comments, maybe you have been to these places and they're in your top 5. Or if they're not in your top 5, what are your top 5 most memorable places that you have been to in the United States and why? I would love to hear those, so feel free to leave it in the comments below and I will get to those as soon as I can. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and I look forward to seeing everyone in the next video where we talk about the top 5 states that I would recommend going to. But until then, bye!